Hi, Kristina. Thank you for running for office and for seeking the Riveters
Yeah.
Collective endorsement. We're conducting this interview on the traditional territory of the Nooksack Tribe and Lummi Nation. And this interview is being recorded for us to use in our endorsement decisions and also may be shared publicly. Your screen name looks great. We have 5 questions for you tonight. 3 to 4 minutes each approximately for answer time. Hopefully that'll leave room at the end if you have any questions for us. To begin, would you please tell us how you prefer to be addressed?
What, Kristina?
Perfect.
Ooh,
Thank
do I get to
you.
pick another nickname? Fun.
You never know. Sometimes people want to shorten their names or whatever. So quickly, we just want to go around and introduce the committee members that are here, starting with Suzanne.
Hi, Kristina. My name is Suzanne. Thanks for running for office and for applying for our endorsement. Happy to be here. Looking forward to this. And Candace, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Kristina. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for everything that you've done for the community so far. And thank you for applying for endorsement. And I'm happy to be here as well.
Hi, Kristina. I'm Beth. Rosebud Motel. Well played.
It's kind of accidentally left over, and I had another endorsement meeting, and they were like, "Yes." And I was like, "All right, let's roll with it."
Moira is my favorite GIF. It's the best.
Yeah, she's my spirit animal.
All right. So we're going to have Suzanne ask you the questions today.
Great. Question number 1. What experience as an administrator, executive, or elected official has prepared you to be the best candidate for this position?
Yeah, absolutely. Right out the gate. So I've been the at-large Bellingham City Council member for 18 months, almost exactly. And I had a moment the other day having a one-on-one with upper level admin, and I was like, you know what? I just have more questions now that I'm on council than I did before I came in, and I was really paying attention. And I reflect very often. I feel like my life as a council member is the perfect mix of the show Parks and Rec and then the show Succession. It's kind of ridiculous in some of the things that we get caught up on. I'm like, oh my gosh, Leslie Knope should be here for this. But then the roundabout way of no one really getting to the point of saying everything in a very neutral manner as to not offend anyone, kind of no matter what the topic is. We waste so much time, like in what takes someone to get out 3 minutes. I'm like, I just needed a yes or no. And that has been incredibly frustrating. And I'll actually cite specifically having the head of Mercy Housing Northwest come to one of the committee meetings and not being able to give me any answers as to why the Eleanor apartments are in the shape they're in, why the tenants' rents just keep getting, they get a 9% increase every 6 months like clockwork. And sure enough, I really started digging and they went, oh, we're over time. We gotta go. I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, wait, you gave me nothing. And it is just so frustrating. And I really do believe that not just me, but our entire community is not going to get any answers until the culture inside changes. And so I think I am the person to set that new tone, to set a new pace, and to not just always agree with what staff has come forward with, question, not out of malice, but out of curiosity and making sure that what we're being presented is actually what's best for our community and not the easiest thing to tie it up and say, well, we fixed it.
Thank you. Question number 2. Unmet demand for mental health and substance use disorder services is a major contributor to challenges facing the city. As mayor, what will you do to reduce the unmet need for mental health and substance use disorder services?
Hey, the answer seems so simple and easy to me. We have to find more funding, and not find more funding, but leverage more funding. We just, in the last council meeting, went over the county's plan for the jail ballot initiative. And step number 4, step number 8, I don't remember exactly which one, but it identified that staffing levels are so low, and actually says, something to the effect of, and very across the board, essentially, they're underpaid. That was the end of that sentence. And the next sentence was, so employees who do this work need training and support. And I was like, okay, well, you identified the problem, but you basically were like, our thoughts and prayers are with you. When what we need to do, the only thing we can do to actually try to contribute positively to this crisis and this huge gap that we have, is to raise pay across the board for everything. And possibly in a naive sense, and being so young, which I still consider myself, or at least try to, at least in my 38 years in this country, anytime we want to go to war, we're ready. We can find all the funding that we need, all the funding that we want. And even with the debt ceiling, and it the Capitol actually coming to agreement. So we printed a $31 trillion coin. There we go. Boom, solved. We can keep going. And we're not investing in the things we actually need. This isn't a problem that started at COVID. This is 50 years of neglecting, honestly, first making light of mental health in general, and the importance of getting help when you need it, and then undervaluing the work that's actually being done. When the ordinance to ban public drug use was brought to the table, I strongly opposed it, and actually drafted my own 3-page council memo to go in the packet. I was like, I don't want to waste the entire committee meeting. Everyone's going to have thoughts to say, but criminalizing this is not the answer. It's shifting it into darker corners, and it's shifting it to later. And to a certain degree, and I said this, I believe this forever, just getting people housed that isn't the answer either, because if you've never been housed, if you never had someone teach you how the best and most effective ways to be a highly functioning individual and take care of yourselves, of course, just dropping you into a structure and being like, okay, we solved it, mission accomplished, is contributing to the issues that at least I'm personally seeing when I go to the Bellingham Housing Authority properties, and just the lack of wraparound supportive services for almost every single client in there. And I was actually having a conversation with Terry Bryant of the Opportunity Council, who is the coordinated care intake supervisor yesterday, and she was like, yeah, we just need money for pay. We can try to dazzle and razzle and how to bootstrap it and build stuff out of pallets, but again, if we refuse to pay the people who do the work, not only for how hard it is, but for the trauma that they carry. It's not a job where you're like, okay, I'm done, and I check out. The stories of these people are with you. They're in your soul. This work is so draining that, of course, we see such a high turnover. And I think that the wages across the country are just a reflection of how we're not taking it seriously. So my only answer is, we're going to spend the money. We're going to find the funds. We are $50 million in the black after the last budget session here locally. We can do it, and we have to. There is no other answer.
Thank you. Question number 3. Since the historic protests of 2020, there have been important conversations about criminal justice, including police accountability, race, sentencing, bail, and incarceration. As Bellingham's mayor, how will you advance equity in our justice system and reduce incarceration?
To reduce incarceration out the gate, we need, first, we need public defenders. Again, something else that we have been scaling back on spending money on something that is so, it's one of the number one tenets of being an American. You're supposed to be able to have access to a trial. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But as soon as we get them into processing and we're able to lock them up, again, problem solved, we're done. I want to say about 2 weeks ago, there's an article that there was 3 people waiting 37 to 45 days just to get their first trial because we are at such a lack of public defenders. So that's A. And while I wish that the establishing of the station had been done differently. I wish that we were not so heavily dependent on the model of incarceration as it currently stands. That's also not a cork you can just pull out and be like, and then we'll work on rescaffolding it. We have to have more, not even liberal, we have to have more common sense people in every single position across the board. We have to have people who understand that this is life and death. These are not just numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. These are human beings who, as far as I can tell, mostly have been failed across the board every step of their way of living. And that doesn't matter wherever they started. And definitely thinking about the incarceration and the deportment of immigrants who come to this company or to this country. We have to, we just have to change everything. In the discussion about the new jail, I noticed that it says that they only want to put in 400 to 440 units. That's units, it didn't say beds. And so if we're talking about cells in general, even right there, that is really interesting verbiage choice on how to say the county is proposing a more humane jail. But if the case is going to be copied and carried over to this new build, that could be 1,600 beds when they say we've got to keep jailing people, we're at max capacity. So I also think that I do not think that the county's initiative is even remotely the correct one. If that is the one that ends up on the ballot, I hope the community votes it down again, because we will just wind up in this same cycle of having so many people incarcerated because we're spending too much money on that one thing. And then at the same time, I am very much for taking away cash bail. I'm very much for being on house arrest. It's something that the prosecutor's office had to get very well efficient in, and really caught up on all the avenues that were available because of COVID. And we just need to keep continuing all those practices. And then on the other side, instead of figuring out how we pull people out of jail, how we pull them out of their trauma cycles before they end up in the legal system in our community, how do we stop them from falling into the river? And I'm so excited that Prop 5 passed after so much work, and all of the people who are working on that. That is the first real true investment I can see that this community has made countywide, to really look at the heart of the issue and try to start fixing it before we have to involve all that rest of the legal system, which if it works perfectly, maybe in 30 years, we're going to be able to scale back drastically. And that's my hope for our future.
Thank you. Question number 4. Do you support a local minimum wage that is higher than the state minimum wage? If so, how much higher?
Yes, I'm definitely on board with Community First Whatcom. I think that the initiative that they have brought forward, and agree with their $2 more. Boy, I wish I knew the stat off the top of my head of how expensive Bellingham is comparative in the state, but I think we're 4 in how expensive it is to live here currently. And it is so unfortunate that possibly there could be some local business owners who are not able to adjust to that. And I really do hope that if that happens to be the case, if this initiative goes forward, that the Small Business Development Center will be able to step up and help those businesses work on their needs, help communicate with the city what those needs are, so we can figure out if there's anything to do to close that gap. But at the heart of this, I helped one of Ali Jensen, who works in the health department and focuses on food security for the county, put together a focus group for hospitality workers on food access last summer. And at the heart of it, they were like, yeah, the lettuce is going up, milk is going up, eggs kind of got out of control there for a minute. But if our rent was not so out of control, and if the homes we are living in were, and not all of them, but a lot, I visit probably 3 new units every week, we're not in such deplorable conditions, the fluctuations and the rising cost of all of the other little things would not have such an impact. So I really do think that getting a handle on tenant protections is going to do, it's going to touch every sector of every issue that our community is currently facing. I had 52% of Bellingham residents are renters, which I believe equates to 54,000 community members are renting. And I could spend 2 hours telling you stories, giving you documentation on the independent investigation I've been doing and working with Tenants Revolt. But that is the #1 driving thing. I'm sure you're all aware of how much the rent has increased, even since my partner and I moved here in 2016. So when we talk about, I get a little upset when we talk about the smaller things of how do we bring it down? How do we make every little thing more affordable when the big picture and the Goliath that we all need to turn on are predatory landlords and predatory property management companies. But yes, I also, I don't know how this is going to go over with the team. We're the only species on this planet that pays for food and shelter. So not only is money not real, but it's everywhere. And I do think if the core of the community is to keep the community together and keep the fun, funky Bellingham vibe alive, we can come together and save any business that is on the precipice with an increase in minimum wage.
Thank you, Kristina. The last question is, what is your preferred plan for the Post Point wastewater treatment plant and why?
I was on the Public Works Committee last year, and I'm not exaggerating when I spent the first 5 months just getting up to speed. That train had been in motion, and we were really chugging down along that path. Full steam, talking about the billion-dollar project. I have visited 2 sewage plants now, which is kind of insane. Larry McCarter sends a lot of emails to council, and I've spent some time with him. And I really do believe what he's saying about the expansion of Whatcom County in general, that we should be looking at least at building a county-wide plant. Bellingham's only gonna keep growing. Where it's situated on the waterfront, as many of the backstops they could put in to having it be right there. I think they're doing a wonderful job. The current plant has gotten a lot of awards for how great they are, how clean it is, and how up to date and all of that. But the location just doesn't seem all that reasonable. I think that's very valuable land we could be doing something else with. And also, if we're able to pool all the resources for this county, I think that is really looking forward, not what is it going to look like here in 20 years, but what's it going to look like here in 60 years. And Larry has some great research on lagoons, in fact, and how to use the natural process of the lagoon. And I believe not Skagit, with the county that's right below Skagit is operating on that already, and let the water evaporate, and then be able to disperse the solids, in a more reliable manner, and be able to disperse it all and not really have it just kind of lying around our waterfront and interacting with it and the contamination that's happening there. Human waste itself is a really interesting idea. I know that and I'm forgetting the term right now, the effective way of burning it and then recapturing the methane that's happening there and being able to produce energy out of it, I think is really interesting. But I believe in Mount Vernon, they were working on that, a pilot project online already, and the construction caught fire. And I also believe the same thing happened in Anacortes. So the idea is great and it's sound, but the technology is still really in its infancy stages. And so with what we're dealing with, honestly, I do think a countywide lagoon is the way to go. And advocating for that would be definitely, I'm going to be honest, it's not on the top of my priority list. In the last Public Works Committee meeting that we had, with the new fix-its that Public Works had come forward with and the staff down at the plant, they think it's got a good solid 10 years left in it at least. And when they were screaming that the sky was falling and we had to do something or had to make a decision within 2 to 3 years, that is where I started in council around January. And then all of a sudden we decided not to go forward with it. And they're like, yeah, we can do more things to make it hold or stand up and be effective for 10 years. And I'm like, so what parts are you lying about? What is really, where are we really at and how dire is the situation? And so I do think that there's a little bit more longevity left in there. Then maybe they're giving us, I'm not a scientist at all, and I definitely don't know intimately the inner workings of our plants. But I do think on the next step, we have to be incredibly smart and we really, we have to get it right. And again, collaborating with the rest of the county, we're only 240,000 people. It seems like a slam dunk.
Perfect. I was just about to interrupt you. I didn't have to, so I'm glad. We don't really have much time for extra questions, but if you have any other questions for us, you can go ahead and you can call Suzanne, you can send us an email and just let us know. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, and thank you for all that you are doing and how involved the Riveters are in local politics and try and keep the community engaged, and the work you do, keeping the community engaged. Democracy only works if we're paying attention. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good
Hi,
luck.
Kristina. Thank you.
Bye.